Hey, what's up guys? So many people asked me, Daniel, why did you choose Vietnam as your final destination? So in this video, I'm going to share with you 8 funny and interesting experiences that happened to me while I was there. But just so you know beforehand, Vietnam was the first country that I ever traveled in with Hitchhike where they both didn't speak English and it wasn't a Western culture. So a lot of things you're going to hear about probably would have been avoided if that wasn't the case, but that was the case, which partly is the reason that I love Vietnam so much. So enjoy the video. All the countries that I ever hitchhiked in, getting rides in Vietnam was the easiest. I think the average waiting time was probably 2 to 3 minutes, and I don't think I waited more than 10 minutes the whole time that I was there. And I think it was because, and specifically in the countrysides, the people were genuinely curious about why this foreigner is choosing to travel this way. Another really funny thing that happened to me in Vietnam, which I'll never forget, and it never happened before and it hasn't happened since, is there was one day 2 guys on a motorcycle arrived to give me a ride at the exact same time, and they started arguing with each other, like yelling at each other over who was gonna take me. And at that moment I was like, relaxed, it's not a big deal. I think it was more of a pride thing, but they were getting really upset at each other. So now we're gonna do a reenactment of what happened in Vietnam with my grandma being the hitchhiker.
Come on, no, come on to me. I saw her first. So it was something like that, I assume. I don't know for sure that it was in Vietnamese, but I think that's what they said.
Oftentimes, I would arrive at my destination, and then I would get off the motorcycle, and the driver would flag down another driver who was going the direction that I needed, and he would tell him to take me. So I would actually just continue with some other person without even trying to hitchhike myself. And I kind of felt like I was just being passed along. And what I got from that is that people genuinely wanted to help me. Because the person who I just got off the bike with wanted to make sure that I was continuing with somebody else. I would get to the destination, I would get off the bike. And before I would leave, the driver would call some person who he knew who spoke English. And a lot of times, he didn't even know the person so well. Like this is the accountant's sisters-in-law, ex-boyfriends, I don't know. And anyway, I would speak to the person and they would say, "Are you okay? Is everything okay? The driver told me that you're traveling here in Vietnam. He wants to make sure that you have enough food and you're safe and all of that." And I'd say, "Yes, I'm totally fine." It was so nice that even though me and the driver couldn't speak the same language, he cared enough to call someone who knew spoke English to make sure that I was okay. And that was just such a sweet thing to do. Maybe the most memorable thing that happened to me in Vietnam was I went to a Vietnamese wedding. How did this happen? I was one day at a restaurant and I just simply asked the table next to me what they recommended to order. So they told me and then they invited me to come sit with them. I sat with them for a couple hours, we ate, we drank, it was awesome, and just by complete coincidence, there was a couple at the table who was getting married a few days later. So they sent me an invitation the next day to the wedding, and I went. It was actually January 1st of last year, and it was an incredible experience to go to this wedding. So this next one is hilarious, and it's a perfect example of how the same exact thing can have 2 completely different interpretations. So nursing homes. Where I come from, they're normal, they're socially acceptable, and it's common that people put their parents in nursing homes. So one day when I was in Hanoi, I met a guy and we were talking, and somehow the conversation got to nursing homes. And he told me, "Oh, I heard in the West you guys put your parents in homes." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's true." And he says, "You mean people that have like Alzheimer's or dementia or need medical assistance?" And I said, "Yes, but also just regular people that are healthy." And he goes, "Why?" And I said, "I think sometimes it's just easier for the family, you know, I don't really have a good answer for that." And he said, "How long do they stay there for?" And I said, "You know, typically you stay there, you die there. You don't usually leave. So then he looked at me with this confused look on his face and he goes, so your parents give you life and food and shelter and clothes, and then when they get too old and become a burden, you just put them in a home to die? And I say, well, when you say it like that, you make it sound really bad, but I don't know what to say. Like, it's totally normal where I come from. And then he got, like, not upset, but he was just, what the hell? Like, what kind of society is that you can do that to your own parent? He just couldn't grasp the fact that we would put our own parents in a nursing home, because in Vietnam 4 generations could live in the same household, and he thought it was the worst thing in the world to do. So I must say beforehand that this next story is the only time in all of my travels that I've actually felt in danger. Like I've said before, Vietnam was amazing because of the cultural differences. However, in this case, the cultural differences were not in my favor. I got a ride hitchhiking for about 40 minutes, and after the 40 minutes, I got off the bike and the guy offered me some money. It was like $1, $1.50. It was a very small amount of money. In any case, I turned it down and I said no thank you. He tried handing it to me again. I said no thank you. This went on for like 2 minutes, and then he physically and forcefully grabbed my hand and tried putting the money into my hand. Now, where I come from in my culture, that is not okay, that is not acceptable. There's no reason to be forceful and aggressive. So I just turned around and walked the other direction. And as I did that, he came and walked in front of me and started yelling at me in Vietnamese. He was really pissed off. Within a minute, there was a circle of Vietnamese people around me, and I was really scared. I was in shock, but I was also really scared. And one lady from the crowd came to me with a cell phone, handed me the cell phone. I answered. The woman on the other line spoke English, and I started to explain to her what happened, and she told me, you need to take his money because you're being very rude and disrespectful, and he finds you very arrogant. So the first thing that I did was I took his money and I apologized, and then afterwards I had some time to reflect on it and think about it, and it was just crazy because the exact same thing that for me was being polite and respectful by walking away and saying no thank you to the money, he interpreted it as rude and disrespectful. So it's just crazy that the exact same thing can be interpreted so differently. In any case, I advise you, if you ever go to Vietnam and anybody offers you anything as a gift, accept it, do not say no. Most of my rides, I would say 80% were on motorcycles, which is a fantastic way to see a country. So traveling in a country by motorcycle by itself is an amazing thing. It feels so freeing, and I really enjoyed it. And by hitchhiking, I was able to just sit back and look at the beautiful scenery while the driver drove, and it was such an amazing way to see a country. There were a few things but I still wanted to mention because they were really unique about Vietnam. One of them was the food. The food in Vietnam was absolutely incredible. I know you saw some pictures in the video, but it doesn't do it justice. The food there was so delicious, so tasty, and it was also pretty inexpensive. The pho, which is like a bowl of soup with meat and chicken and vegetables inside, it was really good. Another thing that I found very funny about Vietnamese culture was there were so many hammocks everywhere. The Vietnamese people love hammocks. They literally tie them anywhere they can, and I would just always remember seeing people just chilling on hammocks. Another thing that I always saw in Vietnam was if you walk into the markets, they always have these products for your skin that are meant to make your skin lighter. The Vietnamese want to have lighter skin, which is kind of ironic because in the West, we want to have darker skin and be more tan. So it's exact opposite. They sing happy birthday in English, which was really funny to me that I was one day at a dinner and I just started hearing people singing happy birthday in English. Like, I didn't expect that.
Wow! Happy birthday! Happy
If you saw in the video the parade with everybody riding their motorcycles and singing and holding flags, so that was actually when the Vietnam soccer team won I think it was the Asian World Cup. I'm not 100% sure, but there was a huge celebration there when I was there, when it's such a cool experience to be there to see that. And the Vietnamese love karaoke. I remember so many times walking and just hearing karaoke and seeing people singing, and it was just a really funny thing. They just love singing. And the last thing about Vietnam that I really remember is, you know, in every country, typically there's a difference between the touristic and non-touristic places. Because typically in touristic places, they're usually more expensive and they're usually more made for tourists. I had never seen such a difference as I saw in Vietnam. The difference between the touristic and non-touristic places in Vietnam are incredible. The real Vietnamese culture is in the non-touristic places. I really felt that when I was in touristic places, I was just a walking dollar bill, and when I was in the non-touristic places, it was a much better, more authentic experience. And in case you're wondering, my favorite area of Vietnam was in the northern part of the country, not too far from China, in a place called Ha Giang. It was incredibly beautiful and amazing, almost majestic, and when I was there I felt like I had just walked back in a history book, and I highly recommend anybody who goes to Vietnam to go there. The people were super friendly, it was very relaxed, it was just had a very calming vibe there. So check it out if you go there.
Can I get a picture with you? Can I get a picture with you? Wait.
If there's something I love in Vietnam that makes me laugh, it's these little sandals that have this cut off, and these little ass chairs. Like, why? So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope it made you laugh. If it did, please hit the like button. It really helps with the algorithm. I really appreciate it. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. I love reading them. And subscribe if you haven't already. And to hit the bell notification button so you'll get notified when I upload again. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate you. And have a great day. Stay safe. Peace.